Well, good morning, everyone. It is great to be back here once again, and many of your drafts has started. I'm here along with Jed and over in Chicago, Jimmy over in Arizona, and today I'm actually in Grand Rapids, Michigan, the home of the Gerald Ford Presidential Museum. So, welcome, everyone.
Morning.
Hey, did any of you guys watch the game yesterday? So a couple of things. Jameis Winston did outstanding. Marquez Callaway just had that nice catch. Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville offense really struggled. And a couple of other things. I love your comments on it. What do you call it? Oh, here we go. Travis Etienne has been diagnosed with a mid-foot sprain after yesterday's preseason loss and now will be out indefinitely. Adam Troutman, sleeper for tight end, will undergo an MRI after suffering an ankle injury. Thoughts on that? Let me begin with Jed.
Yeah, I think the Travis Etienne one is a huge one. We just finished our draft. Whoever had James Robinson just got a steal. I mean, he is going to be the number one back for, we'll have to see how long the sprain is for Etienne. But I liked Robinson all along, and they've been saying he's still. Urban Meyer's been saying that he is still the starter. So it's not a huge thing, but still, if you got James Robinson, you're going to see his draft stock shoot up now. So he's going to cost a lot more. Or if you're in a league where people aren't paying attention to the news, make sure you get a hold of James Robinson because that'll be a steal.
Yeah. Jim, any thoughts?
No, I agree with you. Actually, so I was high on ETN, and I actually drafted him on one of my leagues. And so I was like, yeah, it's time to put him on. My guess is he'll be out for a few weeks, so he's going to be on IR. I actually did, funny enough, also pick up Marquise Callaway, or draft him towards the end of the 10th round for me. And I actually think that with Michael Thomas out, and now potentially Adam Troutman, I like Callaway. I think he's actually going to be a decent fantasy player this year.
Got it. Very good. Hey, in terms of James Winston, Jim, what'd you think of him yesterday in terms of how well he did?
Actually, I was surprised. I mean, I guess from a fantasy perspective, you always want a Jameis Winston, but I was surprised that he did so well. And even as I was watching the game, they were speculating that he at least now has the leg up in terms of being the starting quarterback, when in fact, most of the training camp, everyone was saying Taysom Hill was going to be the guy because they didn't think that Sean Payton was going to put up with Winston and his interceptions. But it seems like, at least from yesterday's game, he at least has a leg up on that.
If you guys were listening last week and this whole summer, actually, we've been talking about, it's got to be Winston. Winston is so much better than Taysom Hill as an every down passer. To me, it's a no-brainer. But remember that they promised Taysom Hill that he would get the starting role when Drew Brees retired. So that's the tricky part. But to me, in terms of talent, there's no question. And I think last night really showed that.
Yeah. Hey, the other day, Ed, you mentioned that the three of us finished our draft, and hey, any thoughts from the draft? I think the big one was when Jimmy was trying to bid me for Aaron Rodgers, and he just completely increased the pricing to the point where now he's stuck with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's a good tale, cautionary tale. So basically, I think Jimmy was trying to get Tommy to spend a little bit more money, and it was working and it was going up. But then he went one step too far and ended up with two quarterbacks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so here's my thing, right? Because I was like, well, I do hope that Aaron Rodgers is going to have a great year from a fantasy perspective. I also have Justin Herbert. So at least for me, I was like, I got assets to trade down the road. The problem with that is by the time I spent all my money with Aaron Rodgers, I had no more money left. And so you're kind of stuck until the end of the draft when you just pick up people for $1. And that's the frustrating part, is because there were a number of players that went after that went really cheap, but there was no way for me to bid on it, even though I wanted them.
Yeah, that's it. But I agree with you. And the funny thing about fantasy is we're laughing about this now, but watch Aaron Rodgers win you the league. He could have a great season, and that could be the move that wins it for you. So it's not, definitely not everything is lost. But it was a fun draft. I mean, overall, I thought so this was our keeper draft. when we did an auction for just the remainers. So it means that, everyone gets to hold 5 players. And so what happens is the players that are left, boy, there's just a feeding frenzy. All the bidding costs were about double what the average, costs were for normal drafts, because everyone's just fighting for essentially the leftovers.
Well, look at Jimmy with his Najee Harris. That was the first one. He bid at $93 for it. I'm sorry, $93 for Najee Harris. I quit after $89, $90.
No, I thought that was good, though. I mean, you got to, because he had to shore up his running back position, and there was very few what I would consider top 10 running backs. I think Najee Harris, and then who was the other one? There was one other.
I think
Chris
Chris Carson. That's right. The guy I dropped. Yeah, Chris Carson was the other one that basically you're fighting between those guys, and then the rookies. So ETN was out there, and so, but I think in those kind of keeper drafts, you have to identify one position that in your mind you have to get a starter for that position, and then everything else is just gravy.
Yeah. Well, usually, at least with my strategy for a lot of these drafts, I'll let people bid high on the first round of running backs, right? And some of the first round of players. I'll usually go high on wide receivers and potentially tight ends. And then I'll try to fill in my team with a lot of really valued players. But this one is a little bit different because I decided I'm going to spend I was willing to spend $100 on a good running back and try to go after 2 or 3 really, really good players and fill in the rest of it later on. So,
yeah. Hey, one thing that actually has helped me a lot of times is when you're drafting, especially in auction league, Yahoo allows you to see positions grid and allows you to see who drafted what. And so that allowed me to really look at Aaron Rodgers. Wait a minute. I'm the only one without a quarterback. Everyone else has a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is there, and Ryan Tannehill is there. So if I lose Aaron Rodgers, I probably will be stuck with Ryan Tannehill. Let's do that and go figure out a trade another day as well, too. So that was the one. So that helps you a lot.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention to that one. I was paying attention to trying to up Aaron Rodgers.
Well, hey, look, let's go over to the AFC East as well as the NFC North for this time. And so a lot of times, let's begin with the Bills as well, too. Everyone knows that Josh Allen is your number 2 quarterback behind Patrick Mahomes. Jim, I'll start with you. Any concern about Josh Allen? It's not that he's good. Everyone knows he's good. Is there any concern where you would not want to pick up?
No, I don't think so. I remember this time last year, we were all drafting Josh Allen towards like the end of the draft, and you were able to get him for a really, really good value. Now he's going second in most of these drafts, which I think is pretty good, but it's still pretty high as well too. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. Stephon Diggs, I think, is going to get his catches and make fantasy. The more of the question for me will be how well will Zach Moss do, as well as also Devin Singletary. Because there seems to be a mixed group of people that says that this Moss is going to break out and be the number 1 back. And there are some people who just believe that it's going to be a shared running back committee system.
Yeah, I would agree on your thoughts there. I mean, I think the main thing with any high flyer, and I think just in general, everyone should remember there's this term called regression to the mean if you're into stats, which basically means that you have an average and you are always going to kind of head towards the average. And so I think with Josh Allen, you got to say the issue is we don't know what his average is. And so he had a great season, but I think you have to keep your expectations in check. I think he's a top 5 quarterback. Is he going to be the number 1 QB again? I doubt it. I doubt that, the Bills took some teams by surprise last year. That's not going to happen this year. And so you should expect a little bit of a drop, but still in the top 5. If that's part of your strategy, I would have no problems getting him.
Yeah. The concern always has been with Josh Allen isn't that he could run. A lot of times that running ability is what makes him great. It's the accuracy as well, too. Now, I think the presence of Stephon Diggs really helped. Jed, I'm going to throw it over to you. Stephon Diggs, if I was to say to you, Stephon Diggs is overrated as a wide receiver. I don't understand why people are drafting him in the first round. Am I crazy, or do I actually have some legitimacy in what I'm saying?
Um, well, I wouldn't say overrated. If anything, I would say underrated. I think that,
Really? Okay.
yeah, especially going out to Buffalo, I think you don't have as much of the media coverage, and then when he was in Minnesota as well, so I don't think he gets as much press as the Devontae Adams of the world, even the Michael Thomases of the world. So I think no, I don't think he's overvalued. I think he's definitely in the top three. But like I said, I think there's going to be a drop off. So first round, I would say if you're going to pick a wide receiver in the first round, to me, other than Devontae Adams, I really don't think there is anyone I would consider in round one.
Yeah.
Round two, no problem at all. Go for it.
Got it.
No, I actually agree with you. I mean, outside Devontae Adams, I mean, really, Travis Kelce is the next person you want to go after in your first round.
Yeah. Jim, if you had the chance between Devin Singletary or Zach Moss, who would you pick?
I just think Moss has the higher ceiling and the higher potential in terms of being able to be the number one back. There were a couple of games last year he did tremendously in. I just wish that they would say he's going to be the number one back and not the shared running back system that they're going after.
Yeah, I agree with that. And this is the way of the NFL right now. Everyone knows running backs, they're interchangeable, and so there's more two-man committees. Basically, the thing with Moss is he's the goal line back, so he gets the goal line carry. So even if it's an even split, he's the guy who can help break that tie with those TD points.
If you are in 12 team league, a lot of times you might want to look at Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, and if you're really desperate, tight end Dawson Knox. If you're a 10-person league, you're not paying attention to any of these guys as well too. All right, Patriots. Let's go over the Patriots as well too.
Let me add one thing. So going back to the Bills, I know a lot of people don't have defensive players, but I will say from a fantasy perspective, the Bills have some great defensive players that you might want to pick up. Matt Milano, linebacker, Jordan Poyer, who's a defensive cornerback, and then also Taron Johnson. Like they always are pretty consistent from an IDP perspective. So
that defense is going to be awesome. The defense was awesome last season. It's going to be top 5 again this season. So I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Let's switch over to Patriots. Jed, I'm going to go over to you. Cam Newton, Mac Jones, any of them are on your radar as a starting QB?
Not as a starter. I think Cam actually played. Actually, they both played really well in their last preseason game. But I wouldn't pick either of them as my starter. But Mac Jones, if you wanted to look longer term, I wouldn't have a problem there. I expect Mac Jones to have the starting position by the end of the season. When they make that switch, I'm not sure. But I wouldn't pick either of those guys as a starting quarterback. As a backup, I think they'd be fine.
Got it. Hey, Jed, quick question on Cam Newton. A lot of times he says, okay, COVID affected me. It's my first season, New England. I have a year under my belt. Watch me. Any belief in that? Do you think
Yeah, I do think he's trending up. I mean, I think you have to remember last year they had no pass catchers. They're looking at Jacoby Myers or N'Keal Harris as like their number one wide receivers. Those are really poor options. And now adding in Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, I think the passing offense is really going to improve this year. So I see him getting better and having better stats for sure, but not to the point of being a top 10 quarterback.
Jim, in terms of running back, Damian Harris, Sony Michel, who's your running back to own?
Well, I think there was some reports that Sony Michel might be dropped from the team before they head into the final roster. So that's something for us to watch. But I do think Damian Harris is on the verge of breaking out this year. And I actually think that he's actually a good value from a running back perspective.
Now, the argument a lot of times is Bill Belichick never gives the primary ball to a primary carrier. It's always been by committee. Burkhead, Sony Michel, James White, all of these different things. Damian Harris, would you say differently, or would you still see him more as a committee person?
I think Belichick is always going to go for a committee, but I do think Harris is the best one out of that group. That's one of the reasons why I think if Mac Jones becomes the fantasy, the value of both Harris, Jonnu Smith, and actually even if you think about Jacoby Myers, I actually think that they'll rise if Mac Jones becomes the starting quarterback for them.
I thought you were going to bring up Nelson Aguilar, Jimmy. I know you
Oh
were
no,
talking about him as a sleeper, as an
I love
outside wide receiver. Yeah, it's an interesting sleeper. I do think this wide receiver core. I don't know that I would really draft any of these guys, to be very honest. I think if you do, you want to look in the very late rounds. But somebody should pop from this group. Someone should come out. It's just not clear who. But don't forget Nelson Aguilar. He's got that outside speed, so not a bad pick.
But Jay, you would probably agree it's the tight ends that you want to own. You want to own Hunter Henry, you want to own Jonnu Smith. In all my leagues, look, Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts, all of those great kiddos are gone. Then from that point on, Hawkinson is gone. Then from that point on, Logan Thomas is gone. Out of that last tier, you can't go wrong with Jonnu Smith or Irv Smith.
Yeah, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith are great picks as a sleeper. I think either of them could sneak into the 10th spot, 9th tight end spot, so you could get them very cheap. And again, we all know the history with New England and tight ends, so expect some production there. It's just a question of who, and then the injury concern. Both Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry have not had full 16 game seasons in quite a while, so that's the other concern.
I was listening to ESPN driving into the office this morning, and I was surprised the two people that they've been pushing is they said Jonnu Smith and Logan Thomas from Washington is going to have a breakout season.
I totally agree.
I was fighting Tommy for Logan Thomas. I already had Kyle Pitts, so he was my number 2, and so that's why I was gun shy. But I totally agree. Yep. If there's anyone to go all in on at the tight end position, for me, it's Logan Thomas. I think a great strategy is wait, let everyone else spend their money on the other top 5, top 6 tight ends, and then when Logan Thomas comes in, you're going to get him for maybe $30, and he's going to produce at like a $50-$60 tight end.
Matthew Berry was saying that he would draft Logan Thomas above Kyle Pitts, which I think is pretty crazy, right? Because I like Logan Thomas. I don't like him that much,
See, I really like him too. I wish, so like I was saying before, if you have sleepers, so I have Kyle Pitts, but to me, any rookies or any sleepers, you need to have more than one at that same position, and then you're hoping that one of them will hit. So that's what I wanted Logan Thomas, because then I knew between Thomas and Kyle Pitts, one of them is going to do well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Switching over to the Jets as well, too. I'm not even going to talk about Zach Wilson. The only thing I would probably say about Zach Wilson, if you are in the keeper league or if you're in auction, just monitor him, see how well it does. The Jets have historically been bad. All right. They got Sam Darnold. He was terrible. He's now in Carolina. Zach Wilson, brand new coaching staff. Just pay attention to him. We're not going to spend some time talking about Zach Wilson. The one that, Jed, I'm going to talk with you as well, too. Michael Carter. Are you looking at Carter? If not Carter, are you drafting any other New York Jets running back?
Yeah, for me, not Carter. I have said historically there's teams I shy completely away from. The Jets have been one of those teams, but I broke that this season. As you guys know, I drafted Corey Davis because I do think he's had a nice preseason. We know him from before. I think at Tennessee right before had some pretty good production, and so as the pure number 1, and you know what, Zach Wilson has had a nice preseason, and so he's shown some accuracy, has a good arm, and so someone's got to catch the ball. And so in my mind, they're going to be losing a lot of games, so they're going to have to be throwing a lot. So I did this year go out and grab Corey Davis.
Yeah. Hey, another wide receiver for you to look, which, by the way, Corey Davis, if you guys are familiar with them, was over in Tennessee last year. He was your number 5 draft pick of Cleveland Browns a number of years ago, went to Tennessee and really had a resurgence, and now he's with the New York Jets as well, too. Another person, Jim, I'm not sure if you're paying attention, is Elijah Moore, rookie in 2020. Moore had 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns through 8 games over at Ole Miss. Now, he's injured right now, but are you stashing Elijah Moore and paying attention to him?
I'm putting a star by his name in terms of the waiver wire, and I'm just going to keep an eye out on him because I do think that there's some value for him towards the end. But if I were to pick somebody, if I were to look at him versus like a Corey Davis or a Marvin Jones, I'll pick a Corey Davis and Marvin Jones before I'll pick Elijah Moore.
Yeah. Couple other ones on your list with the Jets. Jamison Crowder, you're not picking up. Chris Herndon, tight end. You're desperate if you're picking up Chris Herndon. So those are ones that, unless you're a big league, you're not paying attention to as well, too. Last team over is the Dolphins over in the AFC East. Jim, I'm going to start with you. Tua, do you think Tua will hurt the offense, or will you think that he'll have substantial growth in his second year?
Actually, all reports have been recently that Tua's improving. And you know what? Like, I think during the summer, everyone was thinking, is Deshaun Watson going to come to Miami? And is that going to be the starter? Is Tua going to be able to hold up for this year? And actually, in the last few preseason games, he's actually done pretty well. So for me, I'm actually willing to take a risk on a Jalen Waddle and a Will Fuller for this year. And I think there's quite a bit of value because no one's really looking at them. I mean, Jalen Waddle was going towards the end of our auction draft. Will Fuller is the same way as well, too. So I actually would I don't know if I would draft Tua, but I would go after his receivers.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that of the receivers, people aren't talking about Devontae Parker, man. Devontae Parker is awesome. It's interesting how both Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle, I guess you're looking for that higher ceiling. But to me, Devontae Parker is the guy that I'd want out of that group. He's a stud. He had a little bit of a down year last year, but I think you can attribute that to the quarterback play. And I agree, Tua seems to be getting better. My big concern with Tua is he doesn't throw the ball long. The deep ball, over 20-yard passes, that's where he really struggles. And that in the NFL, that's going to kill you. So he's got to show improvement in that deep ball. But I would expect just a natural progression. He will get a little bit better. And so if you want a sleeper on this team, to me, Devontae Parker's has got to go for.
Yeah.
Would you? What?
I would not draft to it. No. No, I don't think he's drafted. I mean, maybe as a QB2, but not as a QB1.
Okay, let me ask you. Would you, given all of the issues going on with Jamar Chase, would you draft a Jalen Waddle over a Jamar Chase right now?
No, I think the situation is too good in Cincinnati. I know everyone's been talking about Jamar Chase's drops. He's had 3 drops in each game he's played in. But no, I mean, the potential is still too high. And the offense in Cincinnati, look, it's Joe Burrow. People forgetting Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert were the same before Joe Burrow got hurt. In fact, Joe Burrow was ahead in yards right before he got hurt. So this guy is a stud. Once he gets a little bit more confidence in that knee, and that offense in Cincinnati, they're constantly they led the league and they were top 3 in passing attempts. And so in that division, they're going to have to throw a ton. So I think Jamar Chase is still the guy you'd want to go for.
Mm-hmm.
Last thing I would say about wide receivers, a lot of times is if you're in auction league, you could probably get Devontae Parker, like what Jed said, at a very cheap price. Also, in standard drafts, just wait until Devontae Parker. Everyone's going to be picking up Jalen Waddle. He's a sexier pick. People are intrigued by Will Fuller. Everyone's ignoring Devontae Parker as well too. Just so you know, also with Will Fuller, he is actually on suspension for the first 6 games of the season. So even if you pick him up, you won't be able to play him as well too. Jim, let me ask you a quick question. Myles Gaskin, talk to me about Myles Gaskin. Talk to me about Mike Gesicki.
I think Gesicki will do well. I think Myles Gaskin will be doing well. I think for me, outside of